The Prince and the Pauper 3. The prince stood outside the big hall where the party was being held. He ordered the soldiers to open the door. Everyone laughed when he said that he was the real prince. People wanted to throw him into the pond. But then a man said to Edward, "Don't worry, I will help you. My name is Miles Hendon." Miles saved Edward from being hurt by the crowds of people. He led him through the dark streets of London. Suddenly, someone said, "The king is dead!" The little prince became very sad. Tears started running down his cheeks. His father was dead. Now Edward was the king. Miles took Edward to an old, dirty inn. "Miles, thank you for helping me. I will make you a knight," Edward told him. While eating, Miles started to tell Edward about his own life. Miles's father was a nobleman and quite rich. But his brother Hugh had planned to throw Miles out of the family. Hugh told lies about Miles to their father. "My father believed Hugh, and I was banished from the house. So I became a soldier and went to war," said Miles. Edward was very interested in his story. "I plan to go and see my father. I would like to tell him what has happened to me," said Miles. Edward promised to help Miles tell his father the truth. After a few days, Edward and Miles arrived at Miles's home. Hendon Hall was a beautiful mansion. Miles met his brother, but Hugh pretended not to know Miles. "Don't you know who I am? I am your brother." "Where is my father?" Miles said to Hugh. "I have never seen you before," Hugh replied. "Both my father and brother died many years ago." Miles was shocked to learn of his father's death. He was also surprised that Hugh had taken control of the land that really belonged to him. Hugh became angry. "They are liars!" he shouted. "Put them both in jail!" He ordered his servants. Edward and Miles were taken away to a cold, dirty jail. There were a lot of people in jail. Miles knew that Hugh was cruel to the local people. Many of the people worked on the land. "I will release these poor people," said Edward. A few days later, Hugh had Edward and Miles thrown off his land. They headed back to London. On the day when Tom would become king, Edward went to Westminster Abbey to stop the ceremony. "Do not put that crown on his head. I am the king." People turned to see a boy dressed like a beggar. All were surprised. The beggar looked like the boy who was about to become king. "It is true. He is the king, not me," cried Tom. Tom ran to Edward. He bowed and kneeled before the real king. The king's protector asked Edward many questions. Edward answered them all correctly. The king's protector knew the last question would prove whether he was a liar or not. The protector asked, "Where is the king's grand seal?" Tom helped Edward remember where it was. Edward told the servants exactly where to find it. Everyone was happy to have found the real king. The king made Miles a knight, just as he had promised. Edward also learned how well Tom had ruled the palace. Tom became Edward's best friend. Miles also got back his land from his brother Hugh. Tom, his mother and sisters became rich. They all lived happily ever after.